Check, 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 check. All right, Mr. Mayor, ready at your convenience.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. We will call to order the Riverside City Council meeting for Monday, June 2nd, 2025 at 6:03 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Brown? Mr. Denning?
Here.
Ms. Fry?
Here.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield? Mayor Williams?
Here.
Move to excuse absent members.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Joseph and a second from the Deputy Mayor to excuse our absent members. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Manager, any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Joseph and a second from Mr. Denning to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. If you're able, please join us to rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a number of guests here with us tonight, and we're very excited to honor two different groups of individuals who are both going to serve our community and the region around us very well moving forward. First, we're going to recognize the people who attended our citizens, or took part in, I should say, our Citizens Academy for the last several weeks. And I'd like to turn it over to our clerk, who was very instrumental in the forming of our Citizens Academy and then running it. So, Madam Clerk, would you please tell those watching and those with us what the Citizens Academy was all about?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stand, but I believe you should all be able to hear me. I just want to take a moment to recognize our dedicated staff and, more importantly, the residents that took part in this Citizens Academy. This program was more than just a behind-the-scenes look at what goes on into government. It gave us as staff an opportunity to build relationships with the community, with our citizens, and to just kind of strengthen our bond between the two so that we can feel more open and be able to communicate with one another. By taking part in this, it really showed the citizens' willingness to engage in good civic activity. So whether it was you learned about the policies or how services are done or how the departments collaborate together, we hope that we gave you valuable insight into how the city works. To our staff, thank you for stepping out of your everyday activities. Every one of them put their heart into wanting to present information and to answer any questions, and we definitely encouraged a lot of questions. And so to our citizens, I want to thank you for taking the time, for showing up, for having the questions, and just being willing to give us your feedback. It was greatly appreciated, and we look forward to doing this in the future. Thank you.
Okay, so we will call up our participants who are with us tonight, and when your name gets called, please come up and
Oh, you can just hand it to me.
I'll hand Katie the certificate, and we'd ask you to stay up here so we can have a few photos. So first, Julie Denning, Tim Crone, Damian McCormick, Chris Keene, James Sayer, Lynn Domisick, and Dirk Johnson. There's James. Oh, there's Lynn, and there's...
All right. I need a camera or phone. Can I say something? Yes, I was going to invite that as soon as I took the pictures. You can. All right, and yeah, definitely come to my phone, give your comments. We want to hear your feedback. This was a 4-week course. We did it every other week. And of course, we skipped graduation week, it was held there, but everybody made it through, and it was fabulous. I had a great time being able to work with you all and with staff. So please don't forget your feedback.
I would just like to say, I'm Lynn Domisick, I'm with the Riverside Chamber of Commerce. For those here and out there who think that they are involved and know a lot about the city, please come and take this academy the next time it's offered, because there is some valuable information that you would otherwise miss. I mean, I want to thank the city, especially Katie and all of the directors and staff who participated in this, because it was very informative. I really appreciate it.
Anybody else want to say anything?
My name's Julie Denning. I've been involved in the city for years, and, you know, I really appreciate what Katie's done with this, because even though I thought I knew a lot about the city because of being so involved with the Planning Commission and through the JCs and the schools, there was a lot of things behind the scenes you really don't know. There's a lot of things about the budgeting you don't know unless you get involved and you take time to learn and research. There's things that you don't know about the police department and all the new things that are starting to go on, which I thought was amazing, and the fire department and the things they're doing to attract quality people back to our city. You know, we kind of went through some years, very big struggles, and it's taken us a long time to get to where we are right now. And after going through this Citizens Academy, which I highly recommend to everyone to attempt to go through this and, you know, spend the time and dedicate one night every other week and go to this. But there are things that are happening that nobody has even an inch of realization that these things are going to happen in our community. We have not only businesses coming to us now, but we have people wanting to work for us. And that is a huge change. And you see that through this staff. And we got to hear from department heads that truly, truly now, as my husband would say, they've drank the Kool-Aid of Riverside. They believe in Riverside, and they are dedicated to making it better. And the one thing I would encourage you definitely to do when we all are out there and we get frustrated with what we may think is not happening in our city is to reach out and ask the departments that it involves, why isn't this happening? What are the struggles? Because let me tell you, if you don't, then all you are is a keyboard warrior, okay? Because you have to know what's going on behind the scenes. And you have to know all of the things that take to make something happen in a municipality. It's not about who your leaders are. It's really about your staff. And let me tell you, this staff right here, they are working practically around the clock. And I know that for a fact because I can send a text message or an email and sometimes get a response at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm telling you, we have the best of the best right now, and this academy just proved it. And if you really want to know what's going on when it comes to when I see everybody online about being upset because of grass, being upset about roads, being upset about this, that, snow removal, all of these things, you need to come and take a tour with Miss Moore here and her department, because then you will really learn. Because even though I had worked with this department many years ago, and especially as a township, and I used to work for the Village of Riverside, I had no idea how understaffed, under-equipped this department is, but yet does everything they can to make sure our community looks and operates the best it can. So please take the time and learn about your city. Take the time to, not just watch a council meeting, but get involved and make things better. And thank you, Katie, very much for making this happen. And I'm so used to calling him Matt, Sturgeon. I've known these guys for so long, I call him by first name. He did an awesome job, one of the best presentations I've seen from the police department. And the new fire chief, Chief Miller, oh wow, his enthusiasm will get you excited about this city for sure. So please, please, and if you haven't met Nia Holt, let me tell you, this lady is working nonstop to bring business and boost our economy here in Riverside. And if you didn't know, our law director now is in-house, so things are happening a lot quicker than ever before and for a cheaper rate. So please, please get involved, know your city, and do what you can to help make it better and not just put it down.
I am James Sayre. Seville, woo! Oh. No, first of all, I think we should give Katie a round of applause for all of her work and with working with the team to really get everything up and running. Julie said a lot there that I would be echoing for sure. One of the things that really struck me when Chief Miller was talking and he was going through his presentation, and all of the department heads had opportunities to give a presentation about how their department works and information about the city and how what they do impacts the city. It was very interesting, but one of the things that he said was that, you'll hear businesses talk about being data-driven, right? And that was something that, of course, I'm in a consulting role. It's kind of what I do, and I hear about data-driven all the time. And he talked, though, about using data to be informed. So he says, we're not data-driven as a city, we're data-informed. And that allows us to be able to give the best services to the city and to be able to project forward the needs that we're going to have and how we can best impact our citizens. And I thought that was really interesting. And presentation after presentation after presentation, and it really started with Josh talking about the data. What does the data show? We have a number of folks that are newer to the community, that are working for the city, and you can tell part of the reason they're here is because they know how to use data, and they're using that to make an impact on the city. And so I just thought that was really impactful, and I could not echo Julie enough in saying, if you're interested in the city, you're interested to know how it works, you're interested as to maybe why some of the things that seem like they should be, well, why doesn't the city just do this? Or why doesn't the city just do that? Well, there are reasons, and they're probably data-driven. So if you're interested in knowing and you want to do more than maybe jump online and hear some frustration or venting from somebody, please, the next time the Riverside Citizens Academy is in session, take advantage of the opportunity to learn about your city. And I think that you're going to come away excited and impressed, and you're going to meet some great people along the way. So I would encourage everybody that way. Thank you.
My name is Dirk Johnson. I've been a resident of Riverside for 7.5 years. I just found the Citizens Academy a fascinating, in-depth look in the detail of everything that goes on in this city. If you start combing through all the data and the dollars and the activities, you'll find it amazing that we have such a safe and secure and functional city. I want to give a special shout out to Chief Robinson, Chief Miller, Director Moore, Director Holt, also to Katie and Josh for putting all this together, and there's several other people I'm not identifying by name, but they really did a fantastic opportunity. Law Director Miller, Law Director as well. So many people put effort together to expose the city to us all, and I just thank them all for that opportunity, and I thank the city of Riverside, and I'll echo what everyone else says. If you have an opportunity to attend the next session, please do.
Anybody else?
Tim Cron, resident here now for just 5 years, director. No, I am chair of the board of BZA, the Board of Zoning and Appeals here. And I was asked and pushed to come to the Citizens Academy by Katie. She's a good friend, but it was exciting. I'm not going to reiterate everything. It was great. It was a lot of fun. When I got home, my wife and kids were like, stop talking about the city. But there's a lot of cool stuff that we have in Riverside. And the budget that we have here at Riverside, I think, is kind of interesting as far as how much money we actually bring in and, what we're able to use with it, with the little resources that we have, which, again, it was said they're understaffed in many departments, but we still use every dollar for everything that we can. And so they do a really good job of implementing processes by Josh. Does a great job of implementing new processes the last several years to help make this a better city for us. So it was a great job, and since nobody else is going to be coming up here, just give everybody else another round of applause. Thank you, Katie. All right. Great job, Katie. Appreciate that.
All right, thank you again to Katie. And I would certainly echo what many said. I've heard nothing but great things about the Citizens Academy. So thank you for taking those steps to get the word out and get people informed. Next is one of my favorite times of the year as a member of this council and as mayor. We bring in and recognize and congratulate the best in class from Stebbins and from Carroll. And the number of years that we've done this, when I've been a part of this council, it's always great to see the students here with their families, to hear about their plans. I have an advantage because I work at Carroll and I get to know many of these students. But I also want to say thank you to our superintendent, to Chad, who's here tonight, because he's really invited me into the Stebbins campus and to get to know a lot of the students there as well. So it's great to kind of see these kids grow up. And I know many of them are going off in different directions to do wonderful things. But at least one more time, because I know they've probably been to a lot of graduation parties, and they get asked, what are you going to do next year? What are your plans? We get to say thank you, and we get to ask them a few questions. We're not going to ask them to make a speech, but similar to what we did with our Citizens Academy, what I'd like to do is call up the individual. I'll say a few words about them as they come up, and then we'll call up the next, for the ones who are in attendance tonight. And we will start with Joseph Canopsy, and I hope I got close to his name correctly pronouncing it. But Joseph is the salutatorian for the Stebbins class of 2025. He was an exemplary student participating in the Engineering Career Tech program. He represented Stebbins at Skills USA and was a member of the Stebbins tennis team. So Joe, if you could just stand right up here, like the people before us were doing.
No, right here. Oh, just right here.
Stand up.
Yeah.
And I'll hand you this, then I'm going to call up the next person, and they'll stand next to you, which is Connor Otoski. Connor is the valedictorian of the Stebbins class of 2025. He was also a member of the Engineering Career Tech program. He was a member of the National Honor Society, the National Technical Honor Society, one of only 3 students to earn a CSWA Solid Work certification while he was at Stebbins. Also, a dual sport athlete, captain of the cross-country and track teams. Also very active in youth life. And it's great for me because I know Connor's grandfather and his family really well from St. Helens. So Connor, congratulations, this one's for you. And then next we'll call up Bryce McEachin. Bryce is one of the valedictorians from Carroll. Bryce was also a member of National Honor Society, the Spanish Honor Society, and won the school-wide Academic Excellence Award in Science. He was also a team captain of the swim team, a student mentor in the marching band, and achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, among many other things. I will also, on a personal note, tell you that Bryce was a very big part of our Military Kids Club at Carroll. So Bryce, congratulations. And not to be outdone is his sister, Claire McEachin. Claire was also an exemplary student, member of the National Honor Society, Spanish National Honor Society, Also won the academic award in science. Those two had to split the award. I'm sure they figured it out when they got home. She was also an Eagle Scout, a member of the Carroll Swim Team, and in the marching band. So Claire, congratulations on your valedictorian award, and thank you for the work you did at the Military Kids Club. I will now call up Leah Cassis. Leah earned the title of valedictorian at Carroll. She was a member of the National Honor Society. She was also on an engineering, math, and science team from Carroll that placed third in the state through the Technology Student Association of America, and she will be competing at the national competition later this summer. She also won the academic award school-wide for STEM. Leah is also a standout on the volleyball team and was involved with Women in STEM, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for these kids because she was also very instrumental in our Military Kids Club. So thank you, Leah. Here is yours. And last but not least tonight, we have Grace Yagabachi. Grace was also a member of the engineering, science, and mathematics team that Leah was a member of that is placed third in the state and is going on to the national competition later this summer. She was also a member of Women in Tech. She was an academic captain for the Trinity House, and she was a participant in Ohio Math League, along with being a stand-up member of the Carroll women's tennis team and a team manager for the men's team. Grace, congratulations to you, and here is yours. So Katie, our clerk, is going to take a few pictures of you guys standing there, but don't go after the pictures are done. So parents, there's also a really nice mural in the lobby if you want to take more pictures. I am going to put you guys on the spot and ask you the microphone and ask each of you to just say, what are you doing this fall and where you're going to go to school and what you're planning on studying. And then you can go sit back down and stop on.
Well, you can't sit down yet.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not trying to do a meeting takeover, but we're gonna get some more pictures.
We'll get some more pictures. So Joe, if you can first go and just say on the microphone where you're planning to go in the fall and what you're planning on studying.
This fall, I'm planning to go to Wright State and study mechanical engineering.
Excellent. Connor?
I will also be attending Wright State, but for IT and cybersecurity.
And Bryce?
I'll be attending the University of Notre Dame and studying electrical engineering.
I will be attending Hillsdale College to study English and politics for pre-law.
I will be attending the University of Dayton and studying computer engineering through the honors program.
I'll be attending Ohio State and studying computer science.
I have you on this side and have superintendent.
Yes, absolutely.
Switch side.
Yeah, we'll switch.
I'm sure you must. Very good. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations. Thanks for the awesome. Engineer. No, absolutely. So you forward it down. All right, these two take pictures.
Was it?
Oh.
Yeah, this year.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Come this way. Yeah. I will stand. So I get
You're good. You're good. Perfect. All right. 3, 2,
You're free to go. Enjoy your evening. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you, parents.
Chad.
All right. Thank you, parents, and thank you, students. We will move on to acceptance of citizens' petitions. If anyone here tonight wishes to speak on any agenda or non-agenda item, there are slips in the back next to our intern, Tim Crone, who can make sure that you can fill that out and hand it up here. His internship's expiring soon, I think.
I think it did at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. We've all had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from our May 19th meeting. If there's a motion to approve those as published.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning, a second from the Deputy Mayor, to approve the minutes as published. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have not had a slip turned in for public comment on agenda items, so we will move on to new business, of which we have a resolution, Resolution 25-R-3032. Mr. Manager, if you could brief us on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a fairly straightforward resolution to authorize us to enter into a professional services agreement with MuniReg, which is a provider of vacant and foreclosed property registration services. Many of you will recall that we previously had contracted with another vendor for this service. That vendor no longer provides the service, and I'll actually turn it over to Ms. Holt to weigh in with a little bit more detail.
After that service was unexpectedly terminated, we have been doing it in staff for over a year now. However, it's been a bit cumbersome of our current staff circumstances and load. So we did put out an RFP. We did only get one bidder. However, after looking at their demonstrations and also contacting their references, we are very confident that they'll be able to provide the services we need. They are Ohio-based. We heard that they are very responsive to customers, whether it be our staff or the people who are going to register with them. They offer regular reports, and looking at their platform, it's very user-friendly. So we do recommend moving forward with their contract.
Any questions or comments before we call the vote?
Move to approve.
I'm sorry for the motion. We have a motion from Ms. Lomatch.
Second.
And a second from the Deputy Mayor. If there's no further questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. We have, it looks like, 2 slips turned in for public comment on non-agenda items. The first slip turned in was from Sam Thorpe. Sam, are you with us here tonight? Please come, if you could, thank you for joining us. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And please keep your comments at 3 minutes. And again, we thank you for joining us this evening.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sam Thorpe. I live at 6350 South Tecumseh, Springfield, Ohio. The concern is I've got a lot over there on Fair Park Avenue. I've had it for 53 years. Got it from my stepdad. It used to be trees and all grown up and everything. And I've had backhoes and tracos and everything else, and got it cleaned up. We've mowed it 4 times already, but we got a thing in the mail, no notice on the pole, no notice at the house or anything, and $115 to mow it and $150 for abatement. I don't know what you're talking about abatement, because all it is grass. We mowed it, just mowed tonight. Wanted to mow it tonight. The house to the right of it, as you're looking at it, it was torn down. It was pretty bad shape. That is a sort of a blight there, because the house to the left is in bad shape. It's got trees that just fell on the house and everything like that. And we tried to keep the lot clean, keep it mowed, but that would surprise us with getting a bill and everything from it without any notice at all.
Did you say the property a moment ago? Did you say the address? I'm sorry.
It's lot 297. If you cross the bridge, it goes right straight in.
It's
to
on
the
Fair
lot.
Park, you said?
Fair Park
On Fair
Avenue.
Park, okay.
It's right there at the bridge. They just put new guardrails and stuff up there. which is a lot going on in the neighborhood. I see they're going to be building big houses and stuff up off of Glendine, MDR. They just built a big building down in there. Previously, I was with Matterhorn Fire Department for 8 years. Years ago, I was a captain at Station 4, Arrowhead Woodman, which is no more. But we try to keep the place straightened up, and but it just surprised me. I called. We came over here Thursday. No one was here, and they said, I called today, and they said, well, you should have called a number, and somebody would have been there. But it just surprised me. You get a bill, I know if I don't pay it, it'll go on taxes and stuff. To get an attorney in here and stuff like that, it's going to cost me more than the $250. But I think it's pretty bad to get a notice in there for having something for 53 years and just getting blindsided with something like this. And I tried to make an appointment to talk to them. They said, the lady said that there was a meeting tonight, so that's why I'm here.
I think we can certainly have the city manager and law director follow up directly on the property in question, and with Ms. Holt, she manages that process. So is that fair to say, Josh, that you can?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just use the contact information on that slip.
The phone number you lifted on here, sir, is this one that's good for?
Yes, 937-521-1144.
44, okay.
Or 937-671-8997. But we try to keep it up. Like I was mowing today, it took me a half hour to get wire out of there because I pushed up in there and stuff. I did take some wire from where the house they tore down. They just left a bunch of wire up in all the brush and stuff. I just got that, wrapped it around the pole, but I was up in there and there was more wire up in there and stuff, and it got wrapped around the mower, and I've got a big Ferris 60-inch cut. So I had to took about a half hour to get all that wire stuff out of there. But we do try to take care of the lot, try to keep it. The neighborhood, I see it's growing. I see Riverside's growing a lot. But
Well, the city manager will certainly, or one of the staff members will certainly be in touch with you this week.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Have
Thorpe.
a good night.
All right, and we also have a request to speak from, is it Zon Mundrock? Monday?
Monday.
Thank you. I apologize for mispronouncing it. All right, well, Zon, thank you for joining us tonight. If you could just state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We welcome you.
Hi. I'm a lot more comfortable in big groups in national politics, so bear with me. I've lived in Riverside for accidentally 11 years. I live at the corner of Harshman and Amstead. So I live right there on Harshman Road. And I have, you can see my little garden, sometimes my cats. So I found out that y'all want to put a roundabout on Harshman, maybe two. And no, please don't. I would really hate to move. I'd really hate to move all those books. Roundabouts are literally the worst thing ever. I went to college in Northeast Ohio, and they have a lot of roundabouts up there, and they are awful. There is a roundabout in Twinsburg that literally just jams up the whole town for hours on end. You really have to avoid that area. And then coming home from vacation at Port Clinton, there's one in front of a college that literally is there for no reason that I can see, but we have to stop and use the roundabout to continue on this long, empty road. And it just stops everything. And there is a backup there because there's a roundabout for no reason. I understand that Mike DeWine is trying to encourage people to use roundabouts, and I think that should be the biggest disrecommendation, is that it's Mike DeWine's idea. I mean, the guy showed up to this shooting in the Oregon district, and I told him, do something, and he did nothing. He did nothing. He muttered, he wandered away. Roundabouts are terrible, in my personal experience, and there should be some other way to deal with this. I drive from my apartment on Harshman down Harshman, Woodman, and to go take care of my parents every day. And the construction has been ongoing and difficult. I haven't felt like I needed to come talk to anyone the whole time I've lived here, no matter what the problems, people, motorcycles, sirens. And I think the 911 people have been very patient with me and my PTSD in the middle of the night, thinking there were people on my roof or whatnot. It's a good place to live, and I don't want to leave, but I will if I have to. It's hard enough to do what I do. So please don't. Please don't make me take my towel and lie down in front of a bulldozer like I'm, in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So, thanks.
All right, thank you. We always appreciate when our citizens come to us with their feelings and their opinions, and it's how we learn about what the community's thinking and what direction they'd like us to head. So we certainly appreciate that. We'll move on to the next part of our agenda, which is discussion items, of which we have a couple. And the first one is police video record fee, and I'll hand it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll actually turn it over to our law director, Mr. Miller, and I'll get our presentation loaded up here. Jim's worked with Chief Robinson to do some extensive data gathering and other research in response to some of the questions that council had when we first teed this item up several weeks ago. And I'll go ahead and let him launch into that presentation, and then if you have questions for either him or Chief, they'll be available afterward for further discussion. But Jim, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager, and good evening, Mayor and council members. And Chief, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So really, this is a follow-up to our last discussion with council about this topic, which was on April 21st. And there were some particular data points that were requested and inquiries from council that needed a little bit more digging. And I want to give all thanks to Chief Robinson's staff, particularly his records clerk, Melissa Lewis, who provided some really great raw data that I think speaks to all of council's inquiries. So we tried to synthesize that and put it together in a consumable format that will hopefully and readily answer the inquiries that were raised back in April. So just as a very, very brief refresher, what we're talking about, House Bill 315, and it has actually been slightly modified and amended since we last spoke about it through the House-passed budget bill, and we'll get to that toward the end of these few slides. But just a very brief refresher, it actually expands the definition in the Public Records Act of what the cost is that is incurred by a law enforcement agency, specifically when there are public records requests made for law enforcement video footage, specifically body camera and dash camera footage. And it allows a maximum amount of $75 per hour of footage requested to be charged by a local law enforcement agency up to a maximum of $750, which equals, of course, a total of 10 hours of footage. You can go ahead, Mr. Manager. Thank you. To speak to the specific inquiries that council had raised some questions and concern about, one of the main topics of concern was some data around who are making these requests. Are we talking about individuals that are involved in these incidents? Are we talking about lawyers representing individuals? And Chief's staff researched that data. And the vast majority, and there is some raw data in terms of numbers that we'll get to, but the vast majority of requests for this particular type of media comes from three real sources. I really should have reversed the order on this. The video platform organizers is by far the #1 source of these requests. And by that, we mean YouTube content creators, essentially creators that are gathering law enforcement footage for whatever reason that suits their mission, and they're putting it together in a consumable format that's really for profit. Some is for educational purposes, but it's really for a commercial / educational venture. And then we have news media requests, and our favorite people, attorneys, they make these requests. Very, very less often do we see victims of the incident that is subject to the request or parties to the incident, whether it's a criminal or a civil matter. We'll get to some of these legal considerations about these particular parties here in a few slides. So, thank you. So the scope and nature of these requests, again, the Chief's staff did a wonderful job of putting together some raw data for us. In terms of the video platform organizers, and I'd like to make sure to really make it clear that most of these ventures are profit-making companies, whether it be an LLC or any type of corporate entity really that puts together amalgamations of law enforcement and EMS videos for profit reasons. It's estimated that about 5 requests per month come in of that nature. Again, these are reproduced on YouTube and other social media platforms. And the data that was provided was a typical request of this nature will be for an incident involving 3 responding officers with approximately 30 minutes of footage per officer for a total of 90 minutes of review. And we'll get into the process of what this looks like operationally. And certainly I want to defer to the chief's input on the operational piece. And I'll give some legal insight as to how that would look for staff's recommendation for this issue as well. The news media, it was difficult for data to really be particularly gathered because it's really specific to when a major incident occurs. So it could be once a month, it could be 3 times, 5 times, 6 times a month, and then months where there's none. So it's really going to depend on if there's a major incident that's newsworthy to the community. The typical example of this type of a request was a responding event where 3 to 4 officers respond, and since these are more involved, typically about 45 to 60 minutes of footage per request from a news media. So it's about 2.25 to 4 hours of again, video footage, just raw footage to be reviewed for these types of requests. And where attorney requests come into play, these are typically personal injury, motor vehicle accidents, I would say rarely from the data, a criminal case. Again, we'll get to some legal considerations toward the end. But the example provided to us was about 2 officers with 30 minutes of footage for about 60 minutes of raw video to review for attorney requests. So in terms of the process, so what does all this mean? And again, I'll defer to any sort of commentary and update from Chief if I don't want to misspeak on the process, but basically, it is multi-tiered, I'll put it that way. There's 11 steps that you see on your screen before you, and this probably could have been broken down even further, but the gist of it, I won't read it to you, but the footage has to be located within the raw data systems. The footage has to be reviewed that initial time. So those numbers that were just provided, that's for the initial review. The data clerk has to review that footage one time over just to get a lay of what's on the footage. It's loaded into what's called the GTAC redaction software, which is a particular program that actually applies the redactions. And the redactions include muting voices or other information said verbally that is subject to redaction, as well as blurring faces or other types of imagery. Could be anything from a child victim's face, the victim of a domestic violence call, imagery that is not, we'll say not consumable for a records request production. That must be blurred, and there's technology built into the GTAC program to do that. This must be done frame by frame. There's also strong protection against social security numbers, other personally identifiable information that may be included in any kind of written format on the body camera footage. When a cruiser camera rolls onto a scene, there's often multiple people involved that are not, they've got privacy rights. So again, all this is analyzed after that initial viewing. When the redactions are applied, the new redacted video is saved, and then it's re-reviewed. Oftentimes, Ms. Lewis will contact me for any questions about any particularly complex or out of the ordinary redactions, and there may be re-redactions applied. That process is then repeated for dash camera from every responding cruiser. Once all these steps are done, then it's time to actually produce to the requester the final product. Go ahead. So again, to respond to council's request for what does this really look like in terms of staff time, the example that was provided that I think breaks this down in a real world way is if there's a request for one officer's 30-minute body cam, what does that look like? 30 minutes for the initial review. So the data clerk has to review that body camera once over. And then about double, if not more, of that time is spent actually applying the redaction. So about 45 to 90 minutes is spent applying the blurring of faces and muting of redactable sound and audio. Again, another 10 to 15, so another quarter hour of just logistics, I would say, locating, loading, saving, and downloading the final product. So for a 30-minute body cam of one responding officer, the example processing time would end up to be anywhere between 2 really to 3 hours for that 30-minute piece of footage. If we multiply this by the number of responding officers to a scene, as well as the number of cruiser dash camera pieces of footage that are reviewed, this could be quite staff exhaustive. This can be repeated, 8 to 10 times per month. So we've got 16 to 22 hours. I should say chief staff has 16 to 22 hours per month multiplied by the number of officers and cruisers per incident. And again, Ms. Lewis is a data clerk, but she's also got many other roles and responsibilities. So this it truly takes a significant amount of staff time to particularly respond to these specific types of records requests. It's very unique to law enforcement video footage. It does not exist in reviewing paper records or other types of records that are subject to release. Go ahead. So the legal sort of analysis and synthesis of what we're talking about here, to respond to some particular questions, I think that it was Deputy Mayor Fry had a particular question about how would this impact, if a fee were to be established by council, how would this impact victims of crime? Well, the good news is the House budget bill that's been passed, House Bill 96, has addressed this, so it would be prohibited. A victim of a crime that is subject to this type of records request is prohibited from being charged this fee for any jurisdiction that has it on their fee schedule. I don't anticipate the Senate changing that when the Senate then produces, Mr. Mayor.
Would that extend to their attorney as well?
I'll
If it's
plead the
requested
fifth
by
on that.
on their behalf by their attorney?
If it's requested by their attorney, the same consideration would apply.
Okay.
Attorneys that are representing just parties, so non-victims, they can get the same information via the discovery,
Okay.
whether it be civil or criminal discovery process. So if there's an active case pending, or even oftentimes pre-litigation, there are demand letters, there are pre-litigation holds.
It would be available to them anyway.
It's available to them through the separate criminal rules of discovery or civil rules of procedure
All right.
and discovery.
Thank you.
And rules of evidence. You're welcome. So I think that addresses the subset of individuals who are very closely connected to these incidents. So we're never going to be having victims charged for this type of footage to be released to them, and or their attorneys, and parties to this incident will have that available to them, whether they're pro se, meaning without an attorney, or if they have counsel, their counsel has means outside. The public records process really is not designed to give parties this information. It's a much more extensive discovery and evidence procedure that allows them a greater scope of the evidence really to help them with their case. Thank you. So, to put this all before council in a synthesized fashion, what we really wanted to present to you to hopefully answer the questions that were lingering from the April 21st discussion. And then again, just to recap, what are the next steps? What are the considerations that we're asking to put before council? So again, there's the general policy decision. Does this council wish for staff to create a recommendation to allow this fee at all? Again, it's permissive. I think it's telling that the state has decided, after the Public Records Act has been in effect for many, many years, that there's a benefit. There's a value for local law enforcement agencies to be able to recoup this extensive sort of respect for the staff time and the software that is required to respond to these requests. I think it's important, just as a policy determination, to also remind council that recently, within the past number of months, maybe end of last year, the Municipal Records Commission met and presented a resolution to this council that really just recognized the codified responsibility of the Riverside Records Commission to promulgate a public records policy for the city. And this council does not have to do anything with respect to our public records policy for the city if this council determines that the law enforcement agency would be permitted to charge a fee under this structure. It could simply be added to the master fee schedule by way of a resolution. The fiscal considerations are, if this council believes as a policy matter, this would be an appropriate policy to consider. Council does not have to establish the maximum fee permitted. Any fee up to that maximum would be permissible under law. And I also want to make sure to reiterate or assure the council that this would be a discretionary fee. So I'd want to make sure, from a legal standpoint, it's consistently applied, but there are always going to be reasonable exigent circumstances that may warrant a waiver of a portion or all of the fee. If we do have an individual that perhaps it's not a money-making venture, it's not a victim of the crime or a party to the crime, but there's some reason this is a vulnerable requester where there is a strong inclination that this person should have some type of a waiver for exigent circumstances, that can certainly be considered by in the response. And the fee goes directly to police operations. As a matter of law, this would go into the police operating fund, which again is meant to respect the fact that this is to recoup the law enforcement agency itself, not just the general fund, but recoup the law enforcement operations for the time spent, important time spent responding to these requests. So then the legal considerations, really, training and implementation, it's been a hot topic. It's really not too much of a change to do this. The only real process change would be the dialogue with the requester, because the requester can make the request, and then there is a time frame allotted under the law that allows the law enforcement agency to provide an estimate of what the cost would be and the length of video that is at issue. And this is kind of a different paradigm shift than the typical public records request response process, but the law enforcement agency does not have a responsibility to start that process that we just went through, those 11 steps, until a certain number of days pass that the requester can determine if he or she, or it, if it's a corporation, wants to continue and actually pay the cost, and the law enforcement agency can require that cost up front. So again, that's meant to save those sensitive and those resources if the request is actually going to end up being abandoned. The state legislature doesn't want the law enforcement agency to be on the hook for expending all the time that could have been dedicated for other important activities for a request that's no longer needed for whatever that reason that may be. So again, I think that we're not necessarily asking for any type of decision point tonight. This is a discussion item, but this was particularly to respond to the questions that were posed by council. Both I think the chief and myself would be happy to answer any questions about the data that was provided and the legal analysis and synthesis of that data, and then allow this council an opportunity to digest it and think about it and determine what appropriate next steps may be. So I'm happy to answer questions and go from there. Thank you.
Any questions for the law director, the chief, or the city manager?
So this is just getting our police department reimbursed for something they're already doing?
Yes, this does not change the requirement under law that this has to be done regardless.
But this gives us the ability to get some of that funding, some of that money back that we're already expending on as it is now. If somebody comes in and requests it right now, and it's 3 hours worth of video, and it's going to take that amount of time, we've got no way to get that $150, $225 back. But by us passing this, that gives us the ability to put that back into the police department so that they can use that money to do other things.
That's absolutely correct. As it stands right now, we would only be able to charge what is defined as at cost, the way the law is currently written, for other, which is like 15 cents.
Of a USB or a
Right.
CD.
Exactly, which is
So
honestly quite
$2.
minimal. Yes, so that's exactly right, Councilmember Denning. This would allow for whatever fee may be determined to be appropriate by council. And of course, there are maximums. It's not unlimited, but it without such a resolution, for example, adding the fee permissively to the master fee agreement, we don't have the authority to do that right now. We can only charge that de minimis cost for the USB or for the CD-ROM.
The only thing I would suggest is that we waive that fee for media, and only because there are times when we ask the media for their help in putting something out, and all of a sudden, if we get the oh, well, you're charging us when we want it, but now when you want us to do something, you want us to do it for free. So that would be my only suggestion.
Thank you for that. And to that point, and I'm happy to say this for everyone viewing and for council's benefit and those here listening, my legal advice would be, because of First Amendment issues and other freedom of the press issues, that the press has quite a bit of access that's permitted by the Constitution. So that certainly is a point well taken. Thank you.
Could you clarify, you spoke about parties to a crime have other avenues. Could you flesh that out a bit?
Absolutely. So starting with, anybody charged with a crime has a panoply of constitutional rights to have access to everything via the criminal discovery rules. Victims of a crime, aside from being statutorily now prohibited, which again, I anticipate that not changing when the Senate does pass the budget bill and the governor signs whatever version of that may exist, would be prohibited from being charged a fee. But there's also the Victims of Crime Bill of Rights, which is administered through the AG's office. There's a crime victims section. There are a lot of resources available publicly through other mechanisms for victims to vindicate their access to records, vindicate restitution. There's a panoply of resources that victims can turn to assist them free of charge to obtain records. Other types of parties to lawsuits, again, if there's a civil lawsuit, for example, a motor vehicle accident, personal injury, defendants and plaintiffs, whomever are suing each other in those kinds of lawsuits, the police reports and any police information that has been gathered and investigated that is relevant to that lawsuit would be, we would call it discoverable. It's sent back and forth by the attorneys or by the parties themselves if they don't have an attorney, through the rules of discovery under the rules of civil procedure. And so any party to a proceeding or anybody that has an ancillary interest in a proceeding, if somebody is called for a deposition, if there's an expert witness regarding road conditions, or anybody that's really related to pending litigation, has access to these records through civil or criminal discovery, and that's all free of charge as well. And again, that's actually broader than, there really are no redactions in discovery. You get, with some exceptions, but you as a party or a victim, because victims have right to all the records related to their case as well, have a fuller advantage to get those records in their most pure form with less redactions. News media as well has less redactions. It's semi-complicated.
So in practice, if they were to come in and, just not knowing what they're, maybe they want to represent themselves or whatever, and they want to get the video footage, would we offer to them that they have these avenues, or?
So I think certainly that would be wise. That would be the legally prudent and appropriate thing to do. And again, there could be waivers as well that could be applied on a discretionary basis. It would be the city's fee to administer as it deems fit. I'd want it to be consistent, and I want it to be not arbitrary, but that type of scenario would certainly, in my opinion, qualify as, let's talk about waiving either a portion or in full the fee, or, have to be careful about giving legal advice to people that we don't represent, but we can also indicate, do you have access to an attorney? Have you reviewed, the Ohio Supreme Court, for example, has all of the rules of criminal and civil procedure laid out on their website in an easy-to-consume format. So I think certainly we could point them in the right direction without giving legal advice.
Thank you.
And certainly not prohibiting somebody from getting what the 6th or 14th Amendment would allow them to have anyway.
That's
in that
absolutely
situation.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. This is a different avenue. I think it's become, with the Public Records Act, there's so much litigation about it. It's a very well-known topic, which is great. That's the purpose of it, is for transparency. It's the Sunshine Law. But sometimes I think there's some conflation of what is really more appropriate for a discovery request if there's an active case going between individuals or corporations versus what's the purpose of a public records request. These aren't our records. We just maintain them for the public, but it's certainly obtainable through that mechanism, as well as if there are special circumstances, victims, parties, there's the ability to offer other mechanisms that might be more suited to that avenue.
Thank you so much for compiling this information. It was very helpful.
Thank you.
And I'll just tack on to that, again, not to steal any of Jim's thunder, but I think this is another situation where certainly if we were to have charged a fee and found out later that it was an error, we would reimburse it. I mean, it's, there's a lot of wiggle room here to make sure we're doing right by the folks that come through the door asking for these kinds of records. So.
Thank you.
I think with the, what it says is it's 5 days. We have 5 days to actually charge somebody whatever you're going to charge them with. So if you can, take your time and figure it out exactly what you want to charge somebody with. From my point of view is, I'm watching my records clerk do these things, and she's doing them with her earbuds in and watching this video, and she has to redact it, and at that time, she can't stop redacting once she starts. So she's kind of stuck in that frame until she gets all of this done, because it can't stop it. If she stops doing redaction and she tries to do something else, then she loses everything she's already done. It's just the way the system is. So it to the point of there's a lot of legwork for her to do on a daily basis. I won't say she does it every day, but there's a lot of times she's got those earbuds in watching that video. There's a lot of video to watch. So when you're thinking, three cams on the bodies and 3 in the car, and it's 30 minutes to an hour, that's a lot of stuff to her go over, and you have to go frame by frame. It is very time consuming. This is why they put this in place in the first place, because it is costly for us, and it does take our person out of the mix for hours at a time.
So I think unless there are other questions, I think and again, not to speak for staff, but I think given the data that we've seen and the way that this proposed fee is structured at the state level, our recommendation would be to ask council to set at the maximum rate so that we could go recover these costs to help get as much as we can to offset the staff time. And we can certainly have further discussion about that at the next meeting, but we will proceed along those lines as far as getting that added into the draft master fee schedule so that we can get that in front of you for additional discussion and potential adoption.
All right. Cool. And we'll move on to solid waste contracts.
Everybody loves trash.
We're here to talk trash,
Talking
Josh.
trash. All
Thank
right.
you, Mayor, Josh.
Yep, sorry.
Pulling
Beth.
up our presentation. And I want to introduce our Public Works Operation Analyst, Michaela Grant. She's been with us just maybe about 6 weeks, but then we've been talking about data all night, and that is the crux of her job. So I love it. But she helped pull all this information together, so appreciate that. Thanks for being here tonight. All right, so we're talking trash, one of my favorite subjects. But if you might recall, we back February 3rd, we brought to you that, hey, our current contract is expiring at the end of the year. We need to make some changes based on starting up our utility billing, and we're going to pursue 2 different paths. So that the first path is our current Republic contract. What's interesting about it, and that I noticed just from having been in the business a long time, a wide range, and you can see by all the different items of specialized services. Door service, that means if someone has a medical issue and they're not able to haul their trash to the curb, they will come curbside and right to your house site and get it for you. We have a little over 30 residents currently participating in that, and that's a service that we would offer no matter who we would go get a contract with. The hand pickup, that means you can sit, bags, gear cans, whatever you want at the curb, a variety of containers. The cart service, that's the big toters. And then we also have those same services with a senior rate as well. So a lot of these bids and contracts, monthly rates, annual rates. So just to make everything standard, most people are used to paying a quarterly bill for their trash. So we tried to put all the numbers in quarterly rates so people could kind of compare it to what they're used to seeing. So, and I think of note also, when we were negotiating the current contract and put it out for bid, it was in 2020 and it was the height of COVID. So there was a lot of tough circumstances for anyone trying to run a business, from having employees to procuring a trash truck. The time to procure a truck tripled. So there was a lot of challenges during COVID when this bid was put out. So we're kind of excited to see, hey, now it's 2025, things are back to normal, what are we going to get? And it's exciting, so we can go on to the next slide. So we were working with Republic, with the law director's review of, hey, would it be possible to extend this contract? How many years could we extend it? We're already familiar with Republic. They have drivers who know our city. They're used to servicing us. Hey, that might be an easy win if we could extend that contract. So Republic did come to us with an option for just a one-year renewal. The service level would remain the same. That means all the specialized different options we just saw on the previous slide, they would offer that. What is different is that the city would do the billing, right? Because we wanted to combine, starting next year, with our stormwater utility billing and trash all in one. We would still have the mandatory residential participation. All items would be placed in a cart. And then that administrative fee, that's our city. We've been crunching a lot of numbers to figure out what does it cost for us to actually take the customer service and billing piece in-house, and then splitting that cost between our new two enterprise funds, our Stormwater Utility Enterprise Fund and then our Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. All right, so with the one-year extension from Republic, here's what the numbers would look like. So you still have all your options. But basically, if we look at, I'll say the middle one, the cart service, that's going to kind of be our standard that we look at. The quarterly cost from Republic is $72.03 a quarter. We would add in our $5 fee to do the customer service, the billing. And when you think billing, massive software, right? Accuracy needed. You have to design, print, and mail the bills, and the post office, those costs keep going up. And then also on the billing side, that whole, how do you pay a bill? Do you mail a check? Can you pay over the phone? Can you pay online? Is there an app? So think of all those costs that go with enabling people to get a bill, paper, electronic, and then pay paper or electronic. So if you look at that baseline cost, we're really looking at $77.03 a quarter for that, a standard resident with a cart, both one of each, recycle and trash at the curb. So when we look at what that increase is from Republic, from our current 2025 cost, and then what they're proposing for 2026. And these numbers include the cart rental, because it would be mandatory not mandatory from Republic, but you can see what the increase is, anywhere from $20 to $17.75. So that is what we would be looking at if we wanted to stay with Republic, take the billing in-house, but still allow that wide variety of services. So we had Plan A and Plan B, and I was pursuing both options because I wasn't sure what would work out or what would be best for us. So through the Center for Local Government, we participated in the Southwest Ohio Regional Refuse Consortium bid. And we were kind of unsure of how this would go, since the current bidding cycle that they're on is their Hamilton County Group 2, and we're Montgomery County, right? So we have a whole different way that trash is handled. It has to go through the county transfer station. So we weren't sure what we would, if anyone would want to bid on us. But 2 responses were received. Waste Management submitted a letter that they did not want to bid on anybody. They declined, but Rumpke did submit a bid for us. So, and under this same arrangement, with the consortium, each city or village was allowed to have their own, I'll call it your specialty page, your city dumpsters at parks or government buildings, RTA cans. But 99% of this bid is standardized, and that's how we got a responsive bid from Rumpke. Rumpke, they bid on the initial contract, which was a 3-year contract with 2 one-year renewal options, but they also gave us an alternate proposal of a 5-year contract that had even better rates. So they're offering, it's the same thing, weekly curbside collection, solid waste and recycling. You have your choice of the 2 cart sizes, 64-gallon, 96-gallon. You have to place all your items in the cart, 1 bulk item per week, but you don't have to call ahead. Once again, mandatory residential participation. We know that your pickup day might change, and I know I am personally in love with my Friday trash day. I can get my cart cleaned out before the weekend when all my family comes over and I fill it up again. So know that your day might change. And then same thing as would be for a Republic, the administrative fee for the city to do the customer service and billing would be $5. And then here's what the Rumpke rates came in. And we just gave you the 5-year contract rates because they were just even better than the ones with the 3-year contract. So if you're looking at, and this is the quarterly cost, and that's for curbside, you get a toter for recycling and trash. The quarterly cost, $50.37, and then we add on our customer service and billing fee of $5, so it gets you for a total quarterly cost of $55.37. And then we kept that administrative fee flat for this potential 5-year contract, and then you can see the Rumpke proposed increases. Of note from Rumpke, that they indicated why they would be able to provide us like super duper rates is with the cart content only potential contract, they are able to service our city with their CNG vehicle fleet. They have a CNG fueling station at their facility on Monument Avenue, and there's also a CNG fueling station right next door at Montgomery County Solid Waste Transfer Station. So that allows them to be efficient, cart content only. The staff that drive the trucks don't have to get out of the truck. And that really minimizes the time it takes for them to do the route and the chance for injury. Because every time a worker has to step out of the truck and pick up a bag or a can, even just stepping out onto the curb when it's icy or slippery out, that increases the chance of an injury, drives up their costs. So that's what they indicated, why they were able to give us such nice pricing. These rates do include, if you remember, at a May council study session, we had John Manier here from Montgomery County Environmental Services, and we passed a resolution to approve their Montgomery County solid waste plan for the next 5 years, and that did have minor increases in fees for the solid waste at the transfer station. This bid, and also the Republic proposal, includes those fees increases at the transfer station that the hauler would have to pay. The Rumpke bid includes those ancillary services. We mentioned, dumpsters at parks and city facilities. We also have the ability to get the dumpster rentals, like we did for spring cleanup, where we had the 30-yard roll-offs. It's a pre-specified price. They also agreed to service our RTA bus shelters that have trash cans. There's 21 of those. And then there's an option for additional solid waste recycling cart rental. If you have a large family and you generate a lot of trash, you're allowed to rent more for a certain price. Really important in the 5-year proposal, we could maintain our curbside leaf collection with the bags during leaf season in the fall. So that was pretty exciting that they were willing to do that. All right, so the bottom dollar comparison. That baseline look at what's baseline is curbside with a cart for each trash and recycling. The quarterly service from Republic, $72.03. The cart rental, of course, is included in that cost. We would have your $5 city administrative fee for a total of $77.03. And then Rumpke, the quarterly costs $50.37. That includes the cart, a $5 administrative fee for a total of $55.37 per quarter. So basically, it's $2.41 less per quarter than the current Republic contract. And then $21.66 less than the proposed Republic one-year extension with the cart service.
So Beth, are you telling me that we can get Riverside residents about the same level of trash service for even less money?
It is a reduction. I was amazed.
Why, yes, Josh, that's what I did say.
I am telling you that. I love trash. I'm so excited. I cannot believe we got bids for less amount. But I will say, on the flip side, the decision is, we're kind of trading all these little specialized nuances, right? So if you want the specialized service that really allows our different residential populations to have a unique service, right, then we would want Republic. But for my recommendation, data-driven decisions, I would recommend, I think Michaela, Josh, and I, Jim, we all reviewed it, that staff would recommend going with the Rumpke contract. But I'm open to your questions. And just to note, back when we first started talking about this in February, our goal is to have a path forward, have a contract in June, because if you have to staff up with trucks, drivers, carts, you need at least 6 months to get ready to service us. So my hope is that we can have a discussion, arrive at a decision to recommend a contract at next council meeting. Part of the contract would require them to provide an implementation plan by November 15th, where we would better learn, what neighborhoods are on what days, how are they going to roll out the carts, how are we going to pick up the old ones, and then our new service would start January 1. But that's it.
New service being the one-year extension, correct?
Or a 5-year contract
Or the
with
5-year,
Rumpke.
okay.
So either one starts January 1st, but I'm happy to entertain questions, discussion, whatever I can do to help us make a good decision for the citizens.
Before that discussion starts, just out of an abundance of caution, my second cousins are Rumpkes. So,
the family Rumpkes.
Family Rumpkes. It's the trashy side of my family.
Real trashy.
So yeah, I'm going to keep my mouth big ol' shut in this conversation.
So you've officially recused yourself from
Yes.
further discussions and a vote?
Yes.
Thank
Because they're not immediate family. Ohio Revised Code says, like, a conflict is a immediate family member. However, sensitive propriety, I did, go to their horse farm when I was a kid. They're real nice people. I'm going to stay out of this conversation.
Sounds trashy.
I apologize if I missed this in the slides. What is the impact to the bulk waste pickup?
Right now, a bulk pickup, it's typically up to 3 items. This is 1 item a week, but you don't have to call ahead. So oftentimes, Naya's team would be out there, they would cite somebody, oh, I've left my sofa at the curb, it's been there a month. Oh, but you never called Republic.
Yeah.
So I think the benefit now is you don't have to call. And 1 item, that could be a bed, and that bed would be the bed frame, the mattress, and the box spring.
And that would be 1 item per
week.
Per week.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's included in the cost. So 1 item per week, put it at the curb, you don't have to call, it's gone.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, but everything else has got to be in the container.
Everything else is in the container.
But everybody gets a container, and you don't have, it's part of the cost.
Right.
It's not, I have to pay the extra $9 a quarter to get the cart, so
Right.
that it makes it easier for me.
Right. Everybody gets a container, and if you're a large family and you can rent another container for a price if you need it. But I recommend, I do double 96s at my house. You start to recycle, and they will say, Republic mentioned that our recycling participation rate in Riverside is exceptional. And even Montgomery County Solid Waste said we lead in the recycling participation in the 28 jurisdictions in Montgomery County. So that's awesome, that you maximize your recycling and you can pack that 96-gallon recycle cart pretty full. I think people are going to find there's a lot of room in your trash cart then. But if you need to rent more, you can.
So we would potentially be, could you go back to the slide where we had the recommendations for next steps?
Yeah.
Because there was a June date, there was a November date, and then January 1, obviously, is when we would kick this off. So we would need to make a recommendation at our next meeting. So I just want to make sure that those of us present and then our colleagues who are not present, that we're all aware that we need to have something ready for the staff on the contract pretty soon. But
Yeah, we would like to, if we need more time, and I recognize we're missing 2 council folks tonight, but if possible, I would like to make a resolution to award a contract at next meeting. But if we need more time to think about it, that's fine. It's the lead time. If we elect to go with Rumpke, they need time to staff up, buy equipment.
And if we want to benefit from the cost savings, we should be as respectful of their time as we possibly can and give them and us the most lead, the biggest runway.
We could prepare a resolution for the Rumpke for next week.
Starting-
And then if that fails, then we could do the Republic the following meeting.
Can I ask, currently, people can bundle up their carpet and they can bundle up their cuttings, and can they still do that?
It's in the bundled carpet, that's a bulk item. So let's say you traded out your living room carpet, you cut and bundled it
I
at the
get it,
curb.
yeah.
One bulk, you can still do that. Twigs, put them in the cart. You rake up some leaves, put them in the cart.
Well, there's stuff in front of my house today that would not go in a cart.
It is a change in the way of thinking.
And I see lots of stuff, and not that I like it, but I see lots of stuff that is not in a cart that disappears.
It
I mean,
is,
the-
they take it all.
Yes, they do. And, and
I think they're still gonna do that.
What?
I think people will still pick it up.
Well, they're not getting out
I
of-
think the idea that now I don't have to rent the cart, and I think a lot of people don't have the carts. They use their trash cans because they don't want to pay the extra for the cart. So I think it's part of the cost. And the fact that the cost is coming down by $22 a quarter, which is, if you add that, that's almost $100 a year difference between Rumpke and Republic. So to me, it's a no-brainer, but that's
Okay,
my opinion.
well, I agree with the deputy mayor. I think we should prepare a resolution to have to switch over to Rumpke starting January 1st at the next meeting. And I'll encourage our council members who are absent tonight to make sure that they get themselves as up to date as possible on tonight's discussion, and they can reach out to the city manager or the service director.
Do
if
you need
need
a motion to
be.
that effect, or do you?
No, we'll go ahead and take care of that. I'll have that
Okay.
prepared. The one thing that I did want to just end with was, I think, if memory serves, part of the rationale for initially trying to look at maybe a 1 or a 2-year extension with Republic was so that we could get on the regional bids up in Montgomery County for trash service. Incidentally, the rates that Rumpke has quoted us under this 5-year contract are less expensive than what our regional partners are getting today in terms of trash rates.
So we need to move now.
So it is another reason why, if we want to realize a cost savings, it's to our advantage to move quickly. But and we'll have this discussion with council members who aren't here, but I do want council to I guess, appreciate that is a cost savings, but it does come with some service trade-offs. So the service we will get is not necessarily as high touch as the service Republic has offered to us. But the trade-off there is much less price with respect to what Republic is offering us going forward.
I want to thank the Services Department for putting this all together and putting, I mean, this is the information that we need to make the right decision for our community, and I really do appreciate it. And it's data-driven, which is important. We need that information. We can't just, So I think this is a plus for the community in general. Now, the question I have is, with the 5-year contract, does that then put us in line for the next bid for Montgomery County?
It does not, so we are off schedule.
We'll still be off schedule.
Right, but of note, our bid from Rumpke was far superior to the Hamilton County group.
Okay, and I'm good with that.
And as Josh said, it is better than the current rates that our Montgomery County consortium group, which is Brookville, Bellbrook, Miamisburg, is better than their current rates.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
We'll prep that resolution and have it prepared for the next meeting so that if council chooses to act on it, you'll have the ability to do that at that time, or if we need more discussion, we can go into July, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you for bringing our newest staff member, and welcome aboard. We'll move on to our next discussion item, which I'm sure will be very informative.
I hope so. So I wanted to do a presentation here very quickly to recap where we are with respect to the Woodman Corridor project and Safe Streets for All and some of the other components of this, because I know with respect to things like track and everything else, it has come up recently. And as we've
Josh,
talked about.
could I just ask that when you introduce an acronym, could you just give what
Yes.
it is? Because a lot of us know it already, but even those of us who have been following along for a while, sometimes things slip our minds.
And in fairness, I couldn't tell you right now what TRAC stands for, but there's a slide on here that has it broken out.
Transportation
So-
Regional Advocacy.
Thank you. That's the one.
For the state.
I'm in the middle of my rhythm. I haven't quite got to that point yet. But
I want to make sure everybody knows.
all right, so let's kind of break this down a little bit. So I mostly want to start with sort of the track of life, I guess, that we're on here right now. And I want to give a whole lot of kudos to Ashley Couch, who's one of our administrative assistants who used one of our programs to help design this based on some chicken scratch that I gave her on a piece of scrap paper. So she did a great job. Anyway, so where we start is at a place where the road conditions are substandard, and I think that's kind of putting it kindly. So where we will go next, this is a link to a Google map that anybody can pull out and find, but the main idea is if you flash back to 2022, we are kind of in the middle of this geography here. Our office buildings are here. This is the big intersection out in front of us where the bridge is. The wall starts about here and continues all the way down south through the curves. There's a lot in this area that is our responsibility and our responsibility alone to maintain. So this is a local road, which requires local road money. And when in 2022, when we were first starting to look at some of these things, the main emphasis was on the wall itself, because the wall had crumbled in half in a couple places, was not really stable. But as we've talked about before, for the last several years, and certainly at prior meetings, other infrastructure related to that wall is also failing or in a really deteriorated state. So the stormwater conveyances underneath the wall are in pretty bad shape. Anybody who drives it knows that the pavement's not in great shape, a lot of potholes, a lot of opportunity maybe to come through and try to do some crack sealing, but you're kind of at the point where you're sort of trying to glue large sections of pavement together. It's not exactly a sustainable thing to do. I was told by the service department that, and Mr. Miller in the service department, that we have explored actually trying to come through and lay some high friction asphalt in the past, and we actually had contractors decline to do that because the condition of the road was not stable enough to support that asphalt, and they weren't going to guarantee the quality of that work. In addition to that and the degradation of the curves themselves, there's the bridge. So this is our bridge, the bridge over Springfield Street. There is another bridge that goes over this railroad track going into Dayton. That's Dayton's problem. But our problem is this bridge. And that bridge is kind of in the middle of its service life. We had a report that was produced earlier this year where it was inspected, and the recommendations were essentially to get ready because major maintenance is coming to that bridge. And it's the same kind of thing where you have the girders underneath that need attention, the asphalt on top needs attention. I think the expansion joints have all been clogged up with debris and detritus throughout the years, those sorts of things. But the main idea at this point to drive home is it's ours. We have to maintain it. It's not a question where we can defer this to go do other roads, because if this fails, this is a regional arterial corridor. It is the only arterial corridor that goes all the way through our city. And I think it would be a really bad thing if we let it completely deteriorate. So at the time we were looking at making these road repairs, specifically the wall repairs, it was in the middle of COVID, prices are going up. We had enough on hand to repair some parts of the wall, and then we started a much broader discussion with the rest of our regional partners and engineering firms and consultants, really to try to look at what is the best way to go get money to fix this road, because we don't have enough cash on hand ourselves to just do all of this, and all of it needs to be done. So that led us really to the Safe Streets for All process. So Safe Streets for All, SS4A, when you see that acronym, is a grant program that's administered by the U.S. Department of Transportation. And we applied the first year that grant program became available. And the story that we told, the narrative that we were trying to convey to the folks over in DC who review these applications, is that this is a problem not just where the infrastructure is failing and needs to be replaced, but it actually, based on its layout and the way it was initially designed, contributes to other safety problems in this corridor. So this is a one-pager that we submitted with our grant application in 2022 to US DOT. And what we were trying to illustrate here is that folks run off the road with some regularity. So they're departing the lanes, crashing into the base fence. We have all sorts of fun pictures here of, the fence kind of in tatters or bits and pieces of cars. We had an incident at one point where one of the Army trucks actually hit the wall and smashed it up pretty good several years back. There's a map here that kind of shows some of the heat dots where 3 years ago we were really trying to identify the particular points along those curves where we had departures or other incidents. But on top of all that, not only do we kind of have cars going all over the place, but people use this corridor in a way that really just isn't safe. So we've got some pictures here. You've got kids on BMX bikes that'll try to ride in the shoulder. I was coming into work one morning and there was a dude with like an Osprey backpack on and a walking stick, and it looked like he'd come out of the Appalachian Mountains and like he was like hitchhiking the country on the shoulder of this curve. And all I could think is, one driver gets distracted and it's lights out, for anybody that's off in the shoulder. So we made the ask through the Safe Streets for All program to try to go get money to look at developing an action plan. And an action plan is just a study. It's a concept study. And so we were awarded that in 2023, or I think it was 2023 when we were actually awarded that, and that is a reimbursable grant. So we'll kind of dive into some of the bits and pieces of SS4A here. We were awarded up to $700,000, and we budgeted a local match of $140,000 in order to use that money. And we had to use that money to develop the action plan, if you will. So the purpose of that was to look at strategies, concepts, engineering principles that we could leverage throughout this whole corridor, everything that's lit up here in pink, in order to improve safety along the way. And as part of that, we had to have a series of public engagement initiatives. So we had an open house that was in person last summer. We had a virtual open house that ran for a month. A whole lot of online engagement as far as Facebook posts and these sorts of things. At which time we gathered quite a lot of input from residents about what stuck out to them as being particularly challenging in that corridor. The results of that have all been baked into our draft action plan document, and that should be coming to council at our next meeting. So I'm not going to go too deep in the weeds on the results of this because we'll talk about it at our next meeting, but the main idea is that we're now at the conclusion of this process. We will not quite spend all of that $700,000 grant, but we've got far enough along the way where we know the basic things that we need to do to increase safety, change the layout of the roadway, and discourage aggressive driving, but also try to prevent people, from an engineering perspective, from departing the lanes. So you can see here, and again, we'll get into, these are all concepts, concept being a very key word. When you do an action plan like this, what you're trying to do is identify, again, those basic elements, the bottom line elements that you need to do to try to fix the road. And in the area of the curves, one of the design concepts that came out of that was actually lowering the roadway, introducing some curb, and trying to create more separation and narrower lanes to discourage people from weaving all over. And you'll also notice that this is flat. If you were to drive the area right now, you'll be super elevated, kind of like on the Indy 500. It looks, acts, and feels like a highway today. The concept that we have in front of us is to turn it much more into a boulevard feel with a slower pace of travel. There's been a lot of discussion about roundabouts, and I'm going to be honest, when this draft report comes out, you're going to see a lot of pictures and renderings of roundabouts, and that is partly because according to the engineers that have studied this, and again, this is a safety-oriented concept study, they tend to be safer, they tend to reduce the speed of traffic, which is important, especially around these curves, and they tend to be less expensive to operate over time because there's no electricity, there's no lights, nothing falls down in the wind. It's just a physical structure to try to flow traffic. But it is a concept, so none of this has been proven in an engineering model yet. It's just an idea. And to that point, one of the things that you'll see in this draft report is a concept of a roundabout at Springfield and Harshman and a concept of a traditional intersection at Springfield and Harshman, right? So all of this engineering and study has been done to try to identify the ground level things we need to do to make the roadway safer, but there are no commitments here. And it really is a document that talks about the process that we went through to arrive at some of these things and the engineering principles behind them. Any questions on Safe Streets for All? So we'll move on. So to congressional funding. I love this animation, sorry. Ashley did a great job. Okay, so when we were in the middle of the Safe Streets for All process, we got a call out of the blue in 2023 from Congressman Turner's office. And Congressman Turner's office informed us that as part of the federal budget process that year, they wanted to give us what amounts to an earmark, congressional award of funding, in the amount of $1.5 million. We accepted that. We budgeted our local match for that out of this year's budget. But then the question is how to use it. And the strings that came with that money we are to use it particularly for the areas that touch the base. So if you'll recall, the initial stretch of the roadway that we looked at through the Safe Streets for All program went from this northern boundary of our city, or from that section of the city, all the way down to 35. What we are calling affectionately for right now the Woodman Gateway area is this multicolored highlighted area. And what we're trying to do is isolate, and you'll see the various different colors in here. What are the different chunks, the different phases, if you will, or staging of projects that we might be able to pursue that are going to be more feasible? Because trying to do all of this at once is going to run us tens of millions of dollars easily. We're not going to be able to do it all at once. So we have to figure out how do we apply this congressional money and any future grant in a way that is proactive, that stacks the dollars appropriately so that they all play well together, we can get into something designed and maybe something built someday. So in order to leverage the dollars that Congressman Turner's office awarded to us, we are focusing primarily on these areas here in yellow, orange, and I guess that's like a purple. Because those are the areas that really, those are the curves that really touch the base. So I've kind of pulled them out here for everybody to see, but the main idea is that those monies become available to us next month in July. They are programmed through ODOT, so we are talking to ODOT in order to spend those dollars. But what are we going to spend them on? Well, the first thing we spend them on is what amounts to a feasibility study. So next month, we'll have a report from the first part of this process that shows all the pretty pictures about all the things we may be able to build. We don't know if any of that actually works yet. The Turner money comes into play because we can start to test those things. Does a roundabout actually flow? Will it do the things to slow traffic down that we think it will? Will it actually fit into the geography that we think it will based on right-of-way and everything else? If it doesn't, would a traditional intersection work better? Or what trade-offs would we make by putting a traditional intersection in? Those sorts of questions are the questions we want to start answering with this money from Congressman Turner's office. And the whole time, we have to think about what are the ways that we can build this so that it's still compliant with any federal or state standards that are out there that we are going to be held to by state agencies or by US DOT, Department of Transportation. That is a process that I would expect will take at least 18 months. So this engineering is not quick, it takes time, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through at both the state and federal levels when you start kind of peeling back the onion on how to design these things. So you'll see the little yellow box there that talks about like our current progression. So when we think about how are we funding, our approach to funding improvements in this corridor, yellow is kind of where we are today. We got an SS4A grant, Safe Streets for All grant, to do the planning. We are about to get the plan. We got congressional money to do some initial design. We're about to start spending those dollars. What's next is track. So, and that was what was just brought to council at the last meeting. So the Transportation Review Advisory Council, this is a state program which is administered by the Ohio Department of Transportation. The intention of this program is to target projects that increase capacity or that otherwise reduce congestion, improve economic development, improve mobility. Basically, these are goals that align with our planning process and that align with the goals that Congressman Turner's office has awarded us money to go try to figure out. So like we talked about a meeting or so ago, our ask for track is another $1.5 million in grant funding with $400,000 in local match that we will use for detailed design. So the way I think about it is, if we get through Congressman Turner's design, those funds, and we figure out what actually is going to work, we can start to use track money to go do the in-depth design to build that thing, whatever it is. The deadline for this application was last week, and we've submitted it. So we will know, hopefully, within a couple of months, whether or not we'll be,
End of September.
thank you, end of September, whether or not we'll be awarded any funding for, through the track program for this purpose. I think it's important to remember, though, that all of these awards come with what's called a period of performance. So there is a range of time that we have to spend the money after it's been awarded. It's generally between 3 to 5 years. So just because we get an award doesn't mean we have to do all the engineering at once. And when we get awards from different sources, like a state grant and a federal grant, part of our job then is to figure out what's the best way to structure those grants so that we can get the most amount of work done in the quickest amount of time. That's a great problem to have, and I hope we have it in September. But that's part of the art, I guess, of trying to organize an approach to these grants. So after track, another option that we have is to go back into the Safe Streets for All program. If we were to do that, again, so this is administered federally, if we were to do that at this point, we could apply for what's called a planning and demonstration grant. So that is another grant that the federal government will give you to take your action plan and do more design. So figure out whether or not it's feasible. So there's a theme here. All of the grants, the congressional money that we've been awarded and the grants that we're applying for are generally all about engineering. They're about figuring out what works and then how do we build the thing that works. So if we apply for another Safe Streets for All grant, we would have a similar goal there of continuing a feasibility analysis, continuing the design to test and prove out what's going to work best for the corridor. If we apply for this, the deadline is at the end of this month. And I would say from a staff perspective, we are still kind of trying to weigh whether or not it makes sense to ask for this money right now. Because we have some irons in the fire. We haven't even started spending Congressman Turner's money yet. So we could make this ask, and it would be great to have the money, but I think at this point, we're not quite sure.
You want to start the timeline.
Right. We might not want to start a timeline that we have to commit to. It might behoove us to wait another year, see how much engineering we can get done, and then go forth and actually make a more targeted ask for funding. So we are going to continue to do some homework and then come back to you at the next meeting with our recommendation on whether or not to apply for a Safe Streets for All grant this year. Finally, there's DSIP. So this is the Defense Community Infrastructure Program. This is another pot of federal money, but it's not administered by Federal Highways or US Department of Transportation. It's administered by the Department of Defense. And I think there was a fair question that's asked. Well, like, what skin does the base have in the game for roadways around the base? The candid answer is not much. The Defense Community Infrastructure Program is one of the vehicles that the DoD, Department of Defense, will use to give local governments money to help pay for things like roads around bases. The catch is that oftentimes the pot of money is pretty small. So I believe the total amount of funding available this year is less than $100 million. And what that means for us is that if you think about an intersection replacement ranges between $6 to $12 million, depending on what you're designing, or it could go higher, that's easily 10% of the total amount of money available nationally that's going to be awarded through a program like this. The other wrinkle with DSIP this year is that the administration is prioritizing applications that support installation readiness and lethality. We are going to do our best to make the case that roadway improvements adjacent to Gate 1B support installation readiness and lethality. But without knowing what everybody else across this country is going to apply for and how they're going to try to connect those dots, I don't know how strong our application is going to be. What I will tell you all is that our friends and partners regionally have made it a priority to back us on this application. So the Dayton Development Coalition is 100% behind us and has offered to review our application and help spruce it up however they can so that it attracts more attention in DC. Their lobbyists will look at it. And at a minimum, I take that as a very encouraging sign that we're on a regional radar in a proactive way that folks are paying attention to. So we intend to leverage that regional goodwill and then try to submit a DSIP application that really focuses on the main intersection out there proper. And again, the ask will be to rebuild the intersection in a way that is the most safe for the community. It doesn't commit us one way or the other to a particular intersection type at this point. At least that's our goal in writing this application.
Is there any ideas of what the DSIP amount might be?
I believe we're going to ask for around 9 million. And if we are awarded, we would need to come to the table then with a few more $1 million in order to bridge the gap between what the federal government would pay and what we would have at our disposal through DSIP. But there are other buckets of money that we would be really well positioned to go get if we have a DSIP application and the DDC behind us when we make those asks. So I'm very confident that if we are awarded, we know the right people to talk to and the right grants to go get next to have, I won't say no bill, but the lowest bill possible in terms of our local match.
Because a significant amount of groundwork has been done leading up to this.
Yes, there's been 4 years of groundwork that's been laid leading up to this point in this conversation. So the deadline for DSIP is July 3rd, so we have a month, and our engineering team is currently drafting that application. And so we intend, I can give you an update at the next meeting, but at this point, we intend to submit an application to go ahead and ask for those funds. It would be, I believe the period of performance is 5 years, so even if we are awarded, we would have some time to get through some of this initial design and then use the DSIP money as a next step on the corridor. So I will wrap up, I guess, by saying that at a minimum, what I hoped to have done tonight was sort of briefly, and I guess you'll tell me if I was brief enough, briefly recap that 4-year-long stretch of work that's gone into this corridor, and also how we think through what pots of money are out there, what makes the most sense to go apply for in a way that doesn't overcommit us, but also honors the relationships that we have with our regional friends and partners and the installation and everything else to try to make the dollars that we do spend as effective as possible to get something done. Because at the end of the day, it is our road, and we do have to fix it. It's just not going to last in its present configuration for any reasonable amount of time. And so really this was our effort to try to paint the picture of at least what the next couple of months look like. And by fall, we should know, based on what we've been awarded, what a good next step would be to go chase more money. That's all I have.
Questions?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Josh.
Yep.
It was a big, now, correct me if I'm wrong, once we know that we have federal money coming, when we get close to construction, then we can apply for state funding to help with our portion of what we would need for the grant for the federal money.
Correct. And there are all sorts of different ways that we can try to structure an approach to that. It's a bit of an art. But for example, one of the advantages to making a track application ask this year for a relatively modest amount when it comes to road work, $1.5 million, is track's used to funding tens of millions of dollars of projects. We have a very modest ask based on what track is used to funding. If we're awarded that, and then we get DSIP, and all these things start to line up, and we look around and it's like, oh, we actually are starting to assemble a pot of money that we could use to go build. We could go back to track, and because of those are state dollars, they play nicely with federal dollars, and ask for a track grant to help us bring even more money to the table to construct. And then there are ways that any local match that would come out of that, we can further look to try to go get help through the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, start talking to the Port Authority, start talking to the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission. The thing about these kinds of projects is that once you have some momentum going and people see you getting grant awards, a lot of times other folks want to jump into that. Other organizations want to jump in. It kind of creates a bit of a flywheel. There are no guarantees, of course, but the more momentum and the more money you're bringing to the table and the bigger the project is for the region, the more excited people will get and the more likely you are to get funded. We are.
If I remember correctly, the $11 million bridge across 35 project,
$16 million.
$16 million project cost us almost nothing compared to the $16 million that was put into it. I mean, I think our total was a couple $100,000,
Well, it was a little more than that.
maybe more, but
it was
but it was
a
over
small
time.
amount.
So
Right.
we put, and that's what people need to understand. We're putting little bits in now, and all that counts towards our portion in the future. So,
Right. Yep.
Now, that road was federal, state, county, and Riverside.
Yeah, I know, and ours was the least
least,
amount
right.
because we only had to match
And-
state
and-
funding because we were using state funding to help match federal funding. And it ended up, we got a really big bang for our buck. And that's what
what
you're
I'd
trying to,
like-
and
the
that's
only-
what you're trying to do here.
Correct, yep.
The only thing I'd like to say, and I do support all of this, is to the residents who have not attended meetings and don't understand, none of this money can be put in front of their house. The street in front of their house belongs to their responsibility. None of this money that he's talking about can go to, except our very small donation, can go to put a street in front of their house. They are, and 3 times they voted not to put a new street in front of their house. So it's up to the residents to decide, at some point when this council decides to put another levy on, that they will be paying for the street in front of their house. None of this money can be used for that effort. Am I not correct, City Manager?
There are no federal or state grants that I'm aware of for residential roads.
Right.
I would like to say, like, we lucked out a little bit too, with staff changes in DC, with our Congressman Turner's office. Now, there's 2 senior legislative aides who work for Senator Houston's office. When I was there in March, one of them came up to me and asked me about this project because it was a year prior. I was in DC talking to them about the grant, right, what was awarded.
The
initial award, and now that has followed. So there's a bit of, like, I can share firsthand knowledge that there's a bit of federal interest into this project being completed. And thanks in large part to Josh's work, our staff's work. And, I mean, there is lobbying that goes involved. The city of Dayton, city of Cincinnati, city of Columbus, they have lobbyists who work for them. We don't have those resources. Our lobbyist is our city manager and our staff. But the fact that without having a paid lobbyist on staff, we're able to get this types of attention, federal funding, just speaks volumes to our staff's ability. And I can share firsthand that it's being noticed in Washington.
We also have National Guard facility that is right there at our door that we need to be sure they can get to and from their job. So it's not just Wright Pat, but we have a responsibility.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else on SS4A, we will move on to other items.
I
from
just
the
have a
city manager.
handful of things. First of all, thank you again to Katie for all your work with Citizens Academy. I know we all wear a lot of hats, but I think that it, in a very particular way, paid a whole lot of dividends. And I'm very excited to see what our applicant, or excuse me, our pool looks like next year, because I think, again, the more education we do, the better. So thank you for all your time and effort with all of that. Also, a huge thank you to Lori Minnick and Nia Holt, because they put in a ton of work assisting the Montgomery County Land Bank, which was recently awarded a $1.2 million grant, which will directly help us. So that grant is to begin environmental and review at the old Trey landfill, Trey Hardfill site, kind of across the way there on Springfield, which that is the largest, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the largest vacant acreage that we have in the city that's in one piece. And it's also a hard fill. Second largest, close. But when we think about redevelopment opportunities, we don't have a whole lot of land like that. And so trying to figure out what's actually going on, and the partnerships and time she's invested and Lori have invested with the land bank have paid dividends in that respect. So thank you both to you. And also to police, fire, and service for all of your hard work during the NATO events, which were sort of thrust upon us regionally in order to help provide security and coordinate all of that. We took the precautions we needed to take, I think, to help keep and maintain a safe environment, and had basically no incidents. So thanks to everybody for working all the overtime. I know overtime can be challenging, but I think it's worth it for the safety of our residents, and I appreciate everybody's help. That's all I have.
Okay, I want to make sure folks know that we have an executive session on the agenda planned. So we will, before we adjourn for the evening, we'll have council member discussion, then we'll go into executive. That's typically the end of the meeting for the folks here, and we will adjourn after executive's over. But I would go around the horn and see if there's any council members who have anything they want to add before we go into exec.
There'll be a chamber dinner on the 17th at the Mexican restaurant, just west of the Dairy Queen. It's been several different names right now. I currently can't tell you the name of it, but reservations are due now. But also, I believe that this young man to my left has received an award recognition recently.
I did.
Can you tell us?
I was named one of the 2025 Dayton 40 under 40. So that was
Young professionals.
Yeah.
Still young.
Professionals.
Still young, I guess, 30s. I think I have hit my I'm no longer a young adult. So, yeah, that was a
Yeah,
big
you're
honor.
middle-aged already.
I know.
Well, I just wanted to be sure that we say, great job, and being recognized in the region is important.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes, and it's a nice recognition for the city as well. The city council members receiving that recognition.
That's sort of what I meant.
Yeah.
I believe, Mr. Mayor, you were, I'm joining your alumni, correct?
But I was under 40 a long time ago. A long time ago.
You were.
Yes, I was, you were 29 when you got it, I was 39. So you're a decade ahead of me. Who knows where we'll be in 10 years? I'll be older. I'll be a lot older. So congratulations, Zach, certainly.
Thank you.
And that reception was, I
Last
think,
week?
last, or 2 weeks ago?
Two Thursdays ago
Yeah.
at Sinclair. So I'm not going to, I got the award. It was a nice write-up in the Journal. I appreciate the Dayton Business Journal for awarding me the honor, and I'm hoping it shines a little light on the city. But thank you, Sarah. I'm not going to sit here and brag about myself.
Well, I hope that it gets people in their 20s thinking about public service
Yeah.
in the elected realm, because that's something that you are a bit of an outlier in that sense, countywide, and that does say a lot about you. So I would say that that's a good thing to celebrate and a good thing to put up as an example. So for that reason, well-deserved. If you want corn, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I'll be selling it at the St. Helens Festival.
It's this weekend?
If you want corn, I'll be in the corn booth, and I hope that folks can come out to the St. Helens Festival and enjoy it if they'd like to. And if it's not their thing, then I hope that they avoid the area because it's not always easy to travel around. But it's certainly a fun. When I was a kid, it was the funnest weekend of the year. Now that I'm a grown-up, it's the longest weekend of the year. But I'll be going to my 46th St. Helens Festival, and I'm only 45. So I've been to quite a few. It is amazing. My mom took me when I was 6 months old.
Wow.
Because she didn't miss. So hope that folks can join us at the festival at some point over the weekend and have some of the great food offerings they have, live music and rides. Councilmember Fry.
Definitely looking forward to that corn.
Yes. Chicago style, plain, buttered, whatever you'd like.
Just quick thank you to everyone in the community supporting our bi-monthly blood drives. We had one this evening. The bus was full, and there were several walk-ins. So it just demonstrates great support from the community, and it's a good civic thing to do. So thank you.
And there's always a need, but I think the summer months, there seems to be a bit of a higher need.
Yes, definitely. People go on vacations, and there's a lot of highway travel, which can, accidents can use up a lot of blood in the emergency room. So, yes, thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Mr. Denning, anything?
Flags will be going back up on the 14th for Flag
Day.
But that'll be the next time.
They were up last week and they looked great.
We added a few down Springfield Street just for the NATO coming in. So
Wonderful.
We put, I think I put 6 down through there and 3 at the Memorial Park.
Well, it was a wonderful job. I had family in town on Memorial Day, and they noticed all the flags up. So that's the first thing they said to me traveling here was, well, who does all these flags? The JCs, that's who. All right, well, then we will.
Move to go into executive session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
All right. Is there a second? We have a motion from Mr. Denning, a second from Ms. Lomach to go into executive session for the reason listed on the agenda at 8:05 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denning?
Yes.
Ms. Lomach?
Yes.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph?
Yes.
Mayor Williams?
Yes. We're in executive